pounds from Denver, Colorado. It's Kaitlyn!
We've watched so much WWE.
We watched 10 straight hours of Monday Night Raw in my house.
It's so good, you guys.
So good.
It's everything you want it to be and more.
We're late recording this because we had to watch the Royal Rumble and the Money in the Bank.
Yeah. We watched the Money in the Bank.
I'm pumped. I got my Monster Jam 2023 shirt on. We just watched Money in the Bank 2023 with Seth freaking Rollins.
Hell yeah.
Anyway,
Kaitlyn's amped. I have a sinus infection. And we are here to talk about Idiocracy.
this is take 2 because Juliana was extra sick and we tried to record remotely and it didn't happen.
Didn't go down right.
We should have tested it more.
You live and you learn, folks.
You live, you learn.
You re-record.
Hello.
And welcome to
Okay, but listen.
a review podcast.
I'm Kaitlyn.
And I'm Juliana.
I feel like we did that
really
wrong.
split that up into like 4 parts. It's normally 2 parts.
Here we go. Off the top rope.
Oh, God.
Anyway, welcome to our podcast where we talk about movies, not wrestling. But sometimes
we could now talk about wrestling.
this week we're talking about Idiocracy from 2006.
2006.
I had seen this movie before, I want to say like 15 years ago.
So like 10 years after it came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this movie ever like in full. I'd only seen like bits and pieces of it. Weirdly, I was shown bits and pieces of it in college classes.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's not weird. Some college classes show the wildest shit. I was in a gender studies class, and we were watching a documentary, and one of the fucking movie clips that they included was, like, they were talking about the movie Shark Tale.
I mean, great movie.
I mean, yeah, also some gender things happening in it.
Really?
The young sun shark pretends to be a dolphin, and then he also is, like, very...
Oh my god,
queer.
yeah!
He's very queer-coded.
I forgot about that guy.
And it's got the shrimp monologue. My sister had a baby.
Shark Tale, the queer story we needed.
The Will Smith fish movie.
Queer voices, raise them up.
That's a t-shirt. God, I need to write that down. That's a sticker.
Anyway, so yeah, I had only ever seen the opening scene of this movie and the Costco, the like first little snippet of the Costco scene in this movie.
The Costco is so funny. Welcome to
God.
Costco. I love you.
I do love the Costco scene.
And he went to law school in Costco.
He went to law school in Costco.
You should go to law school. You should have gone to law school in Costco.
I would have gotten a deal.
Yeah, those Costco
deals, man.
Member prices, baby.
Legal Eagle did a not a deep dive, but he watched the movie and talked about like legal breakdown. It's worth watching. Okay. It's pretty funny. But yeah, talk about lawyers always bring a wet blanket to things, you know? It's a little bit of that, but also it's like interesting.
Yeah. So what's this movie about, Juliana? Tell us about the movie.
Do you want like the summary?
Give
or
us the plot. Tell us what happens.
Okay.
Paint a picture for me as if I hadn't seen the movie.
Okay, well you know I'm bad at summary versus plot.
Yeah.
Because I do summaries instead of plot.
Plot is everything that you see on screen. Summary is like the 4 sentences to tell you what the movie's about.
God, I'm so much better at the 4 sentences, but okay.
You have to channel your like hyperfixation where you're like, and then.
I'm gonna try. So, this movie follows Joe and Rita. Joe is the most average man in the world in 2006, and Rita is a sex worker trying to get away from money problems. And they're selected for a military experiment where they're going to be cryogenically frozen for 1 year. It's a super top secret mission, but then everything goes topsy-turvy when it turns out the guy who was ahead of the mission was caught in a scandal, and so they closed down the entire, like, mission thing, and they're completely forgotten about for 500 years?
500, baby.
500 years. So they wake up in 2505.
Yeah.
And they are now the smartest people in the world.
Well, Joe is the smartest, but Rita is definitely, like, right up there with him.
Yeah. Well, she never takes the IQ test, so we don't fucking know.
This is true. Because she never got arrested.
She got arrested. She didn't get processed ever.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the smartest man in the world, and then the president adds him onto the cabinet to help fix what's going on with the crops because they're in the middle of a famine. So they're supposed to be in a drought, which they never really explicitly say, and they're in a famine. Because they've been watering the crops with essentially Gatorade because it has electrolytes.
It has the electrolytes that plants crave.
And then he convinces everybody that they should use water. The water doesn't, which causes the Gatorade kind of thing, their stocks to tank. And then everybody gets mad at Joe. And then Joe is sent to the Supreme Court where they send him, or to the court extreme, I think is what they call it. And then they send him to, like, rehabilitation. It's essentially an execution by monster truck. But in the meantime, Maya Rudolph's character finds out that the water is working, and she has to figure out how to get 2 guys with cameras out there to show the stadium that crops are growing.
And then he gets saved, and he becomes a president.
He becomes
happily ever after.
VP and then president.
And then the whole through thread is, like, he wakes up in the future and makes this guy, played by Dax Shepard. I love him. What's it? His name is, like, Frito?
Yeah.
And he tries to get Frito to help him to get to a time machine.
Oh, I totally forgot about this bit.
It's the best punchline. I got, like, 10 minutes into the movie and remembered the punchline and got so excited to get to it because the whole time he's like, I need a time machine. I know I need to go back into the future. And he's like, yeah, I'll take you to the time machine. He saves the crops. He gets saved from rehabilitation. And it's like a shitty, like, Disney park ride.
I had a hunch it was a ride when he said, I'll take you to the time machine.
Yeah.
And I was like, if it's a thing called the time machine. Yeah. I didn't think it was a ride, but I thought it was going to be like a thing. Not like an actual time machine.
Yeah.
Because he referred to it with the in front, and I was like...
Well, and it's spelled wrong. It's like M-A-S-H-E-E-N.
Yeah. I love that they're like, Charlie Chaplin and his Nazi regime. Like,
so wrong. It's so funny because it reminded me of, like, that bit on the monorail at Disney where you go through and it's just, like, the weird little dioramas.
Yes!
You hadn't seen it before. This was your pick. Why did you decide to pick it?
It started with an I.
The running theme is frantically Googling movie that start with letter.
And also, like, I felt like it was a movie that I wanted to watch just because there is so much, like, buzz around it. Mm-hmm. Because there's so much buzz around it, I thought there was going to be a lot more to this movie.
It's not a fantastic movie. I feel like it wants to be deeper than it is.
I think people want it to be deeper than it is. I think the movie and the people who made the movie know what it is. Mm-hmm. I think the rest of the world is, like, craving for it to have, like, a deeper meaning and a deeper whatever, and it, like, doesn't.
Like, every time something happens in politics now, like, everyone starts talking about how Idiocracy was real and it predicted the future and stuff.
Dude, it's been... When I was doing research for this, it was so hard to find, like, actual information on the making of the movie because so much of the research was, like, just opinion pieces. So much of it was opinion pieces. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just need to know the makings of the movie. Please, somebody, good God, let me find the makings of the movie. And it was just opinion piece after, like, archived opinion piece.
Oh, God.
It was, like, hard to find something good. But I will say the thing that was kind of interesting is a lot of those opinion pieces are more from, like, conservative outlets, I noticed. There was some stuff from, like, the New Yorker and from the Atlantic, but there was also some stuff from, like Joe Rogan talks about it, and one of those other, like, podcasty guys talk about it as well.
So I'm surprised by it being, like, conservative people using it the most, because I feel like the movie is on the side of liberal people, almost. The whole beginning sequence of, like, the smart couple versus the dumb couple, and I feel like it's very anti, like... dumb people, because they're like, well, the smart people, and it's because of the dumb people are the ones who keep breeding, and that's what's going to ruin the country, is all the dumb people are reproducing.
Kaitlyn.
Oh, no.
Kaitlyn.
Oh, no.
So, like, that first scene, something about it didn't sit right with me. Mm-hmm. I think this is why I watched it in college, was because it's essentially the Foundations by this philosopher Garder, I believe is how you pronounce it, but it's like Godderds. And it's the foundational argument for eugenics.
Oh, great. I love that. Yay.
Basically, it's
Hashtag problematique.
Yes. Yes. So it's like, oh, dummies will procreate at a more extreme rate than, like, smarties.
Okay.
And that has been, like, a foundation in the U.S. legal system to justify forced sterilization. That's like a real thing that happens where they say the Supreme Court decision, I can't remember the case, but the Supreme Court decision is super fucking harsh because it says 3 generations of idiots is enough. And they, like, upheld somebody's forced sterilization.
Whoo!
Yeah. Brutal.
Yikers.
So not good.
Okay.
But that's, like, for me, I was like, oh, that's, because I was like, this feels icky. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's that thing.
See, and okay, I can see that. Because, yeah, I remember watching it, I mean, when I was, like, I don't know, 13, 14. 14-year-olds are dumb. Like, my mom was a professor for a long time, and then she became a librarian. And so I had been around, like, that sort of breed of intellectualism where they're all, like, professors and stuff. So it came to me as, like, funny, and it was definitely that thing where it was like, oh, yeah, well, dumb people. Ha, 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 ha. You know? Because most professors only have, like, 1 or 2 kids.
Yeah. Which is the replacement theory. Everybody wants to have 2 kids because then it replaces you and your partner. Anyway, isn't that interesting?
That's really weird.
It's really weird. It's like almost a genetic want to have 2 kids to then replace the 2 of you.
Well, and then I can see how it can be argued with, like, well, dumb people are having too many babies.
Yeah.
Don't love it.
Somebody brought this up to Mike Judge's attention.
And Mike Judge is the guy who wrote
it and directed it.
Okay.
And he was like, look, I didn't really know that. And he's like, honestly, this whole thing is supposed to be an argument of, like, nature and nurture create this kind of atmosphere. He's like, if you look at the beginning, it's not necessarily that they're dumb. It's just that the dad makes bad decisions over and over and over and over again. And he's like, more it's like the dad is bad and less about, like, an argument for eugenics.
I want to go on record that I do not support eugenics.
Yeah, because the movie came out, I think it's something like he didn't know. Yeah. And a bunch of people were like, hey, what the fuck is up with this? And he's like, oh, I didn't know. And it's like, okay. But I thought it was an interesting response that he wanted to hit on nature versus nurture.
Yeah. I feel like that tends to be tied really closely with, like, classism. Where there's the idea of, like, well, if you have more money, you can take better care of your kids and they come out better, which is not the case. I've met some rich kids that were straight up dickheads.
Dude, I've met some rich kids with, like, deep problems. Because, like, the family has deep problems. But they're like, don't worry, money will fix it. And you're like, oh.
The dad making bad decisions, I think there's, like, again, it's this tie into, like, the smart people who didn't have kids lived in the nice house. And the dad who kept making bad decisions and, like, they were living in, like, trailer parks.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any way to spin it that doesn't make it seem classist.
Yeah.
It's more anti-intellectual, I would argue, than it is about, like, being dumb. What is the phrase? It's more... We live in a society that's pseudo-intellectual.
We live in a society,
period. Just in case you all forgot.
The Joker is on this podcast.
This was something I saw on a Wisecrack video that kind of helped me process my thoughts about this movie a little bit better, where they talked about how, like, we live in more of a pseudo-intellectual society where people want to seem smart about everything. And Idiocracy presents an anti-intellectual society where people shun everyone who is smart or anything that is smart.
Yeah, tying it back to the movie, which is what we're here to talk about. I loved the bit where the narrator, Joe, was trying to talk to people, but because he was smart, he sounded pompous and faggy to them. Because the language had devolved. They explained it was like Valley Girl and... redneck, and so they, like, speak very slowly with, like, as few words as possible, I noticed.
Yeah.
And they say the same thing over and over again.
With different intonations.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw one video that said, like, I could not verify this. I could not find where it was from. But one video said that, like, Judd kind of based the society off of, like, his middle school, like, 6th grade class. He got the best grade on a test. and the rest of the people in his class got mad at him because he, like, everybody else failed it, but he had aced it.
Oh.
But I couldn't find him saying that anywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know how, like, true that is.
I love the depiction of the future, like, because it goes for this, this future where everyone's dumb, and it's, I mean, I know that it's satire, I know that it's parody, but I feel like they take it so far. Like, I love the weird little things that evolve, like the evolution of, like, Fuddruckers to buttfuckers.
Yeah.
And then my favorite forever, I quote it all the time, is the Carl's Jr. catchphrase is like, Carl's Jr., fuck you, I'm eating.
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
And the Carl's Jr. is crazy, too, because she, like, goes to it's like the kiosk to order the food. And there's, like, the one lady who can't afford it. And they decide, like, oh, Carl's Jr. has decided you're an unfit mother. And, like, the police are coming to take your children.
Yeah. And now her children are property of Carl's Jr.
Yeah.
That was crazy. That time I was like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. And then Rita goes to, like, make a phone call. And it's, like, Taco Bell, U.S. International, Internet Connect. Like, I think this is what people say are like, how did you know? How did you get it? I think when people say that, they mean, like, how did you know that corporations would become so integrated in American politics?
Yeah, well, and that's all of the clothes that everyone wears has, like, logos and sponsors. There's the one guy on the cabinet who, like, every 90 seconds has to, like, is it Carl's Jr. or, like...
It's Carl's Jr.
Yeah, he, like, has to get on and be like, Carl's Jr. And, like...
Brought to you by...
Yeah, brought to you by Carl's Jr. And he, like, has to say it so that he can get, like, money for it.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you remember this, but, like, there was a moment where the Carl's Jr. CEO was almost on the cabinet.
Oh.
On, like, the Trump cabinet.
In, like, real life?
In, like, real life. That's a real life thing that almost happened.
We're living in a nightmare.
And everyone was like, Idiocracy, anybody? I think people more mean when they talk about it is, like, the integration of corporations into American politics. But that is something that could have been predicted in the Bush Jr. era. Because, yeah, you could have seen this coming. They were already loosening regulations then.
Well, and it ties again into that thing where people always bring it up because they do it with, like, South Park and The Simpsons, too, where they're like, how did you predict the future? And it's like, we've been having the same problems for 100 years.
Yeah.
Jules Verne, or, like, whatever, like, the old sci-fi authors, they're like, wow, he predicted this thing. And it's like,
not
no.
really.
He's not, like, Nostradamus. Like, we've been living under capitalism for 100 years.
We've all just seen this coming.
Yeah.
It's not exactly, like, an unknowable punchline.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we know trash is a problem. To make the joke that there was a trash avalanche isn't hard.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, in the future, that's how Joe and Rita end up coming out of their pods, is they got taken to the dump in, like, what, 2010 or whatever?
Something, yeah.
And there's a trash avalanche, and so that's how the pod comes out, and he, like, breaks that dude's house. He, like, gets yeeted into Frito's house, and he doesn't even get up off the chair. Like, those chairs are so funny. They're like the Wall-E chairs where he's, like, lives in his armchair. He, like, can order food directly to him. It's also a toilet.
Yeah.
It's in front of his giant TV.
His, like, weird, like, bottle nipple that he eats out of makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Oh, so uncomfortable.
So talking about, like, the TV and stuff is great because his screen is, like, so taken over by, like, pop-up ads, basically.
Oh
and,
my
like,
God.
sponsored things. He's watching his video, Ouch My Balls. The star of Ouch My Balls is, like, a huge, like, celebrity.
Yeah.
And all he does is get hit in the balls.
Probably makes a lot of money.
I mean, my toxic trait is I do think, like, farts and, like, getting hit in the balls is really funny.
But, like, when he's watching that and you see all the ads around it, it really did remind me of, like, early aughts internet connection where you had to, like, cancel all the fucking pop-up ads before you get through.
Well, and then internet got quick where it's like you don't even have pop-up ads that you can cancel out of. They're just embedded. And, like,
yeah,
because I watched this on Hulu with ads. Oh. And because I love the narration. Like, the narration kind of, like, moves everything forward. But he's talking about how the program got shut down because scientists moved their focus to hair loss and prolonging erections.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this with ads, and literally every ad break, I got a commercial for that company, Hims, which is pills for hair loss and prolonging erections. And I was just like, we be living in it.
You're like, we done did it, my dudes. We done did it.
So I love Luke Wilson, first of all. He's my favorite Wilson brother.
Yeah.
He's so, him and Legally Blonde is like a perfect man.
So true.
But I love that he's just so average and he has like no immediate family, which is interesting because like you, throughout this, like I don't think anybody has, you don't see people with families.
We see the president has a stepbrother.
Yeah, the president has a stepbrother, but you don't see like parental units with kids. Like in the beginning, you see them with the family, and at the end, you see them with their families.
Yeah.
But it's very individualist, where like Frito lives by himself. Everyone lives by himself. They're in those like huge apartment buildings that are like duct taped together because they're all like falling over.
God, it so makes me so nervous.
But he's just like the most average guy, and he has like no ambitions at all.
No.
And that's kind of why they pick him, and they put him in this program, and I love the army guy who's like introducing the program. He's like talking about how he found Rita is he like infiltrated the gang, and he's like hung out with the pimps, and he's like, I had to meet them on their level. And his slideshow is like all those pictures of him like doing drugs with the pimps and stuff, and he's like, a pimp's love is very different from that of a square.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And that's what I like about this movie is there's like all these little kind of offhand jokes that I like more almost than like the overall jokes. Because I like that joke. I like the Carl's Jr. slogans. I love the law school in the Costco. Like there's the little jokes that I like the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why. They just hit
I love
different.
when he escapes and the guns go off and they end up firing at each other. I
the
loved that.
hospital gets me every time because even the Roomba in the hospital is just like running into the wall repeatedly.
But that's how Roombas be.
I
don't have a Roomba, so I don't know.
My beautiful daughter, Roomberta, she works real hard, but she's not real smart. Oh, the hospital scene just in general. Yeah. I think about that a lot. Because do you remember, I want to say it was like the 2010s, where, I mean, everyone always talks shit about like fast food workers and stuff. But there was, like, that became a joke where fast food workers, like, weren't smart enough to know how to work the menu, so they just touched the pictures of the food that you were ordering.
Oh my God, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and so, like, in the hospital, they have you just touch the picture of what injury the person is in for, and the uniform they're wearing looks like a fast food uniform.
Yeah.
And so I think about that a lot, and it's interesting because, like, being someone who has worked, like, food service and had to navigate menus, like, I'm sorry, but having it color-coded or, like, having big buttons that have, like, what you need is so much easier than having to scroll through and, like, pick the stuff. Like, when I was working at the Crest, like, I'm sorry, if I have 100 people in my line for concessions, I need to be fast. It helps to have pictures on the buttons.
Yeah. Yeah. Or to have it, like, color-coded by, like, these are drinks, this is food.
Yeah.
Just... It's more about made for speed than it is about a person's intelligence. Mm-hmm. It's about being efficient.
In the hospital, too. It was so gross.
The hospital scene grossed me out, and it bummed me out. Those, like, machines in the back where you could gamble to win a free hospital stay. Yeah. Oh, my God, that was, like, brutal. Or you could gamble to win free healthcare.
Yeah,
that's
free
what
healthcare.
It was. Fuck, it's still a problem today. So bad.
I know, and then, like, everyone in line for the weird little probes, they're not even cleaning in between. No. And it's like, this one goes in your mouth, this one goes in your ear, this one goes in your butt. And then he, like, messes it up, and he's like, wait, and he shuffles them around, so, like, you genuinely can't tell, like, which one is which. And he's like, this one goes in your mouth, and you're just like, ugh, gross.
Gross.
But yeah, no, the branding and the ads everywhere, the hospital, I love the giant Costco, because it takes up, like, an acre of land.
More than an acre.
Huge. They have to take, like, buses or, like,
They take the train.
Yeah, the monorail, basically. It's like being in the Denver airport.
I think it's meant to be, like... Because at one point they say it's, like, over they're in aisle, like, 1,000 something something.
Yeah.
And they walk for, like, half a day in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy. I do love that, like, the scene where Joe gets found out that he's in the car, and then all the police blow up the car,
so
and
funny.
you see them shoot down an airplane. That airplane is later in the Costco. Like, you see that it's crashed through the ceiling. Like, I loved that. I was like, what a good little throw out.
Well, and it's, since we've been on a wrestling kick, I was kind of thinking about this too, where, like, the scene where they're shooting the car, and, like, Frito, it's his car, and he's like, oh no, but then the more they shoot it, and, like, they start a riot, and everyone's shooting, he's like, oh yeah, hell yeah. And it's that thing where, you're, like, dumb people like dumb stuff, they just like violence and whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, you see the rehabilitation is just, like, a monster truck rally. And I'm sorry. I have a college degree. I'm relatively smart. Monster trucks are sick as fuck. And they're so cool.
I feel like this is, like, peak making fun of people for having interests.
Yeah. Well,
it's, like, around this time, too, in the late, or, like, the mid-aughts.
Yeah.
Of, like, kind of the death of, like, you nerd, like, is happening around here, where it's like, oh, you like monster trucks? You must be a dummy. Or, like, you like WWE? You must be into a dummy. I don't know, man.
Well, and it's the labeling of, like, what is, like, culture. Like, one of my biggest things is when people say there's a difference between movies and films.
Yeah.
I get so fucking angry about it because, like, who are you to judge, like, what is, like, better? Like, who are you to judge, like, what is correct to like? Like, I rag on Marvel a lot, but, like, if you really like Marvel, I'll respect it because, like, that's what you like. And, like, I'm not gonna say, oh, well, they're bad, so you shouldn't like that. Because you have to watch smart movies from the Ukraine in 1984. I don't think Ukraine existed in 1984. I don't know words.
But it's like that thing of, I don't know, sometimes I had a professor and he called it mind candy. He's like, it's important to have mind candy, where you just get to watch something you like and it's good because you like it.
Yeah.
It's mind candy. It doesn't have to be deep, doesn't have to be anything. It's just a little treat for your brain to be like, ooh, this is fun.
Like, you do need to be watching stuff outside your comfort zone. But I like the idea of mind candy, because you can't only eat candy. You have to eat other stuff.
Right.
And so, yeah, I like that. I think it's important to have, like, silly movies, but I feel like with this one in particular, it should be a silly movie, but I feel like people just, like, want it to be deeper than it is. And it's fairly deep, but I feel like whenever people talk about it, they're like, oh, they predicted the future, and it's like, no.
No. I also don't know if it is that deep. I mean, it's a satire piece. I thought there was going to be, like, layers to this.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's just exactly what it says it is. There's a weird jump. When I was in high school, we were given this project where we had to pick a song, and we had to figure out the meaning of a song. Like, so we would go through the lyrics and figure it all out. My friend Carl picked Oh Bo by Bo Burnham.
Oh.
And Carl just got up in front of the class. He's like, it's literally what it says. He's like, I tried to find more meaning to it. There is none. He's just saying exactly what he wants to say. And, like, that's how this feels to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, there's no other layer. It's just this, guys.
Yeah.
Just this.
Well, what does because you said you watched interviews with Mike Judge, like, what does he have to say about it?
I'm gonna be real. So he has done a lot of other stuff.
Because he did Beavis and Butthead, right?
And he did Office Space.
Okay.
And he did King of the Hill.
Okay.
So he seems more interested in talking about Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill than he does seem about talking about Idiocracy.
I feel like they had a little bit more of a, like, widespread cultural impact.
Yeah, I don't know. He said that making this movie, it was like a cursed film from start to finish. But there's just, like, there legit was no press for this film. So, like, I just, like, can't really find anything on it. And when asked about it, Judge is often like, he's like, I don't like to dwell on that movie to figure out what I got wrong.
Interesting.
He's like, he doesn't like to think about it that often. And again, when he's asked about it, he answers the questions pretty quickly and moves on. So, like, I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
it's interesting and it's weird.
Well, so I feel like it fits into, like, since he did Office Space and Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, this is me reading into things, but I feel like from that, he seems to kind of hold up, like, working class or, like, lower class, because, like, Beavis and Butthead is lowbrow humor.
Yeah.
And King of the Hill is about, like, a working class, like, blue-collar.
So the thing about Mike Judge, I keep wanting to call him Mike Judd, and I'm so sorry. I don't know why. But Mike...
Jail. Jail for you.
I have to go through Judge first. But Mike...
Stupid joke.
He came from two very liberal parents, and it sounds like that both of them worked. I don't really remember what they did. But he got a job in engineering, and I believe it was engineering, and he, like, hated it. He had, like, 2 office jobs, and he's like, this sucks. He's like, well, I've always wanted to try animation, and he always wanted to try making things. So he created, like, a little comic. It wasn't like a still comic. It was a short animation film of Beavis and Butthead that was, like, hand-drawn.
Okay.
And it did really well, and his first one was actually Office Space, and it was about, like, working in an office and how much he hated it. But Beavis and Butthead was the one that, like, took off. Mm-hmm. And so then he was able to kind of do more art stuff that way. And he had the script for Office Space, and it was picked up by Fox, and Fox signed him for 2 scripts.
So this was just, like, his... Idiocracy was, like, his contractually obligated film?
You have to kind of understand what happened with Office Space to understand what happened with Idiocracy. Mm-hmm. So for Office Space... part of it was, he said it was really frustrating to get Hollywood to get it, because he's like, this was in, like, Office Space came out in, like, 2000, I think.
Yeah, something
if not,
like
the 90s. He's like, it was so hard to pitch this in Hollywood and get someone to pick it up, because Hollywood is basically Nepo babies. Mm-hmm. He's like, nobody there has had to work in an office. Nobody there was, like, really getting that people hate working in offices. Mm-hmm. He's like, the archetypes that I had in offices, like, just... the average person on a set doesn't know and doesn't get, because they've, got to hang out on sets their whole lives. Like, they just haven't had that experience. And so he said it was a really weird, like, hard movie to make, and it was impossible to market. He said they couldn't figure out how to market it. That poster of Office Space with, like, the guy covered in Post-it notes.
Yeah.
The cast and, like, or most of the production team absolutely hate that poster. Because they're just like, it's not what the movie was about.
Yeah, it doesn't really have anything to do with anything.
Like, there were so many things you could have picked to make it look cool, and instead you made this guy look like Big Bird with sticky notes. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
So, Office Space came out with, like, I think it had a really bad trailer and very little press. Mm-hmm. It comes out, it pretty much tanks in theaters, it goes to VHS, and then it takes off by word of mouth. It absolutely becomes, like, a classic, because people find it in movie rental places.
Yeah.
And that's where it finds its success.
Okay.
Is more that way. And then Hollywood was like, oh, maybe he was onto something. It sounded like he was kind of burned, where he's like, I knew it was going to do... Like, it was that thing of, like, I knew this would do well, but they didn't believe me, is, like, how that felt.
Okay.
And so there was, like, it felt like there was a little bit of tension around, like, the marketing of it and what happened. And the fact that, like, it later did do well. But he still owed another script, and so he wrote, like, 2 other scripts, and then he wrote Idiocracy, which was initially called America, like UHH America. And he got the idea for Idiocracy. He said he initially wrote it for fun. He didn't think anyone would ever pick it up.
Yeah.
He had this is just getting into the research of it.
Joke's on you, baby. Yeah. Never do anything that is a joke. It just becomes something you do.
I thought you were going to be like, never do anything for fun.
I mean...
for fun and money. Who knows? I disagree, because then we wouldn't have WWE.
That's true.
The story of how he ended up writing Idiocracy, there's 2 things that kind of came together in one moment. Mm-hmm. In the summer of 2001, Judge took his daughter to Disneyland, and they were in line for the teacup rides. Mm-hmm. And he said the 2 women behind him got in a fight. And they started cussing each other out in the line for the teacups at Disneyland. They had
People
kids
be
with
talking mad shit at Disneyland, though. Well,
and he had this moment, he's like, did Walt Disney know? Like, is this what Walt Disney thought was going to happen? Was, like, 2 women from the Midwest cussing each other out for the teacup ride.
And the happiest place on earth.
Yeah. So that kind of moment of like, what do you think Walt Disney would have made of this? And then couple that with the 2001 Space Odyssey, he rewatched it around that time and was like, what if the future wasn't shiny? What if the future was just this, but more extreme?
Yeah, but worse.
But worse. And so he kind of took that and he said he started writing the script and it just was really funny. And then he showed it to the studio where he's like, I guess this is my third script if you guys didn't like the other two. And the studio's like, oh, that one has a bunch of ads in it. Yeah, we'll take it. They took it. He got a co-writer. They did one draft. And then it kind of sat around for a bit. And then Luke Wilson read it. And he's like, I fucking love this. Can I be in it? And then it got its second and third drafts. And then it was put into production.
Okay.
And then they were filming in Texas during the wettest year they had in a long time. And the movie's supposed to take place during a drought.
Yeah.
So they had to kill grass. They had tons of methods for, like, how to kill grass.
I love the idea of, like, sending a bunch of PAs out there with, like, bleach to pour on the grass. They're like, fuck this lawn up.
He said they had two methods. There was the cardboard method if they had time to, like, kill grass overnight, where they would put cardboard down and then take it up the next day and the grass would look bad. Or they would douse it in gasoline. And those were, like, their options.
I love that.
And he says he feels really bad about it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
This movie also, just kind of, like, talking about, like, the release of this before we get into, like, more stuff of it. I also think a little bit of Mike Judge's past that goes into this is Beavis and Butthead had come out, and King of the Hill had come out, but with Beavis and Butthead, he was, like, people were saying that he was, like, the downfall of youth because Beavis and Butthead is so lowbrow. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of plays into Idiocracy as well.
Okay, like the idea of, like, dumbing down kids through media.
Yeah, and I think he kind of, like, took that and ran with it.
Okay.
Because, like, Office Space had no press and it did okay, there was, like, zero press for this movie.
Like, it should be fine again, don't worry about it.
Yeah, so there was, like, two theories about it. It was, like, either... I've heard people say it was the corporations who were used in it found out that they were used in a negative light and tried to bury it. But I found that on one source. I didn't find it, like, anywhere else.
Yeah.
Versus, like, Mike Judd was just like, it worked for Office Space, so, like, why not? He says that they did exactly what they were contractually obligated to do. So it came out in 12 theaters for 2 weekends. Okay. Like, it did not have a release. It wasn't promoted in any way. Like, it didn't even have a poster. The poster came later. After it started gaining popularity, that one of, like, the little Venn diagrammy...
Yeah,
what is it?
Vitruvian Man.
The Vitruvian Man. That poster came significantly later than when the movie came out.
Okay.
If you wanted to, like, watch Idiocracy, in a lot of theaters, it was just called Untitled Mike Judge Comedy. Which is exactly, like, I'm sure it's exactly what the contract says. Yeah. And so they just did exactly what the contract said. Oh, wow. It was out. Nobody fucking saw it, obviously.
Yeah.
Those who saw it liked it. And so, like, critics went and saw it and were like, why is Hollywood trying to bury this fantastic movie? And it got a lot of press from that.
Okay.
From it being like, oh, they're trying to bury it because they think, like, we won't like it or whatever.
Okay.
And then it got onto VHS, and then it got popular.
Yeah.
And so it was very much the same story as
like, what a
Office
weird
Space.
way to do it.
It's weird. It's very
and, like,
weird.
Almost generating controversy, like, manufacturing controversy, but, like, on accident.
It's so hard to tell if it was on purpose or not.
Yeah.
Because it feels like such a gamble if it wasn't on purpose.
Well, and it's interesting to think about the corporations being upset about being used in a negative way. When I was younger, I watched Morgan Spurlock, who is, like, such a fucking problematic dickhead, but he has one that's, like, Palm Wonderful prevents...
Wait, this is the Super Size Me guy, right?
Yeah, it's the Super Size Me guy.
Didn't he die?
Yeah, he died recently.
Yeah, he died, like, weirdly young.
Yeah.
Sorry, anyway, keep going.
But no, he has this one, it's like Palm Wonderful presents the best movie ever sold or something. I could be wrong about the title.
Yeah.
But he made a documentary about product placement entirely funded by product placement. And since I watched that, I love looking out for it because one of the shots he has, he's talking to this guy about, oh, do you notice product placement? Like, it's this trick to make you buy things. And the guy's like, oh, well, I would never fall for that. I would never, like, I'm too smart to fall for things like that. As Morgan Spurlock handed him, like, that pomegranate juice and, like, had him hold it so that the label was out towards the camera. So he's holding the, like, product placement as he's talking about, like, oh, I would never fall for that. And so it's really interesting to watch, like, notice product placement because, like, in a lot of movies, villains don't use Apple products because Apple only wants the good guys to use their products.
Yeah.
It's, like, these little things, and that's what I love about Idiocracy is, like, it's so blatant. They look like NASCAR drivers. They're covered, like, all of the clothes in the future is, like, branded so heavily.
The interesting thing about how they got so many brands, initially, Mike Judge just wanted to use Starbucks because the story goes he was driving down some highway and he saw a sign that said, like, exotic tanning for men. And he was like, since when did tanning have a blowjob afterwards? And he's like, how funny would that be if, like, a Starbucks, like a drive-through Starbucks had that? So he initially had the idea just for Starbucks, and that was the first one in the script was just the Starbucks one.
Okay.
And when they ran it through legal was like, could you, like, bring in other companies? Which makes sense, like, from a legal standpoint, because that way you're attacking everyone, and it's not singling out and, like, smearing one.
Yeah.
Like, organization. You can be like, oh, I was blaming everybody. I was smearing everybody.
Okay.
And, like, it's an easier defense. So that he had to work in other corporations, which is how you get the red light district scene, where there's a bunch of other companies. And so, like, all those companies signed on, and then they heard wind of the like, I don't know how they felt about the project, but that I thought was kind of funny, where he had to build in. So first it was the red light district scene that he built in, and then from there he's like, oh, well, why don't we have that in a Costco? Oh, from there, like, he, like, made it bigger and bigger and, like, added in other companies. But initially, it wasn't name brand companies.
Yeah. I did notice that there were some that were missing. Like, Gatorade isn't mentioned, but it's, like, a Gatorade substitute.
It's very clearly Gatorade.
McDonald's isn't in it. Coke isn't in it. So it's, like, they had to pick. I feel like he probably had to be careful about which ones he could pick.
Well, I imagine they just asked a bunch of corporations, do you want to be in this movie? Do you want your product in this movie? And those said yes or no, depending on how it aligned.
Yeah.
So, like, H&R Block's like, sure, we'll be in the background, you know? And then all of a sudden it was this.
Yeah.
It'd feel very different.
That's true. That's true. I love the fashion and the wardrobes in this movie. Because, so, you see it in the beginning with the costuming of, like, the smart couple and the, like, poor couple is, like, the smart couple is wearing, like, very crisp, nice clothes. It's all kind of muted colors. And then you get, like, the redneck trailer park family that's got, like, the tank tops and the flip-flops and, like, whatever. And then in the future, it's kind of off of that where, like, people wear, it's, like, it looks so uncomfortable. It's, like, that synthetic,
that weird, silky.
like, yeah. It's, like, and it's, like, covered in the branding. And then, my favorite...
Wait. Did you notice, though, when he's in Frito's house, and he's like, I need clothes to change into. And Frito's like, oh, yeah, they're on the wall. And they're, like, in, like, those toilet thingy seat cover disposals.
Oh, I did not catch that.
That, like, the shirts are in those, and the pants are in those. It's like they're stocked.
Weird.
It was very weird. He pulls it out, and I was like, what?
Weird.
Yeah.
We have to talk about my favorite... The Crocs!
The Crocs.
Crocs, baby. Because it's my favorite fun fact that I always have to talk about with this movie is the wardrobe department had to find shoes that looked stupid.
Yeah.
That, like, dumb people in the future would wear. And there was this little, like, startup thing making their little shoes. And it was motherfucking Crocs.
Who knew?
Which is crazy, too, because, like, the thing that's so interesting is I remember when Crocs became a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was dumb. Like, people were like, those shoes are ugly and they're dumb. And, like, there was the thing where if you boiled Crocs, you could eat them. That everyone would bring that up.
Yeah.
And now...
That they were a survivalist shoe.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine trying to be a survivalist. Those shoes are not comfortable.
Well, they're great for camping.
They are.
For just, like, walking around.
Or, like, boating.
Sure.
Because they float.
Oh, yeah. I was like, yeah, I guess water slushes in between them.
As you're leaning and
Like,
looking at my Crocs across the room.
Just need to get a visual.
Because wasn't there a concern around, like, well, what if this what if this tanks this company, or like, what if these shoes take off?
There was a concern about if the shoes took off. There was that concern. They were not concerned if it tanked the company.
Like, fuck these Crocs.
Yeah.
But now, because in 2006, like, Crocs were like, what, $4?
Yeah, because they had a really tight budget. They had a really tight budget and they had so many people in this movie. There's like 65 speaking roles, and that's before you get into like the extras.
Jesus.
Like, there's a lot of people, and so there's a lot of people they had to costume on like not that much of a budget.
Yeah, so of course, like, Crocs are cheap. Or they were.
They were.
I have, for my special exclusive Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville collaboration Crocs, they were $70. And then for my K-pop Crocs, those were $100.
Holy shit.
I know, it's really fucking stupid.
The Crocs.
I know, it's really...
I know this. It doesn't make sense to me. The whole thing, like, when they came out, it was like, they're a plastic shoe, so they can be cheaper because they're easy to make. Mm-hmm. But now,
yeah, I will go on the record as saying, I get it. They're really stupid. They shouldn't be that expensive. But also, I'm a Crocs apologist because those Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville collaboration Crocs are fucking sick. Oh they God. Came with the custom gibbets. One of the custom gibbets is a parrot head bottle opener. And then, like, I have...
Don't open your bottles with that. You have to put your mouth on that bottle. That was on your foot.
I think it's funny because they almost lean into the joke. Like, I feel like Crocs knows that the shoes are ugly and they're, like, kind of chaotic. The marketing Instagram account for Crocs is really funny because it's just kind of, you can tell that, like, a Gen Z kid runs it. It's, like, all memes and stuff.
Oh my God.
And some of the collaborations they do are crazy. They did, right now, they're doing a collab with Bath and Body Works. What? And it's like the blue gingham pattern that's on like their bags.
Don't
and then
tell
it
me
has
it's
like
scented
no!
Who's sniffing those?
Me.
You're gonna get on all fours and sniff your own feet?
We do not kink shame at the Okay But Listen factory.
Oh, I didn't realize. Excuse me.
It's my sexy one fetish.
Sniffing toes.
No, it's not. Listeners, it's not. I swear.
Only if they got Crocs on.
I recognize that Crocs are very stupid and ugly and they're dumb. But anyone who knows me knows that I commit to a bit. I don't know. People always are like, they predicted the future. And it's like, or we just, I don't know.
I think people say they predicted the future because we got a president who was a reality star and involved in WWE and involved with porn stars, which is like the president of the future.
Yeah.
But
President Camacho in Idiocracy.
But Camacho is like for the people. He gives a shit about the people.
He's the people's president.
He is the people's president.
He's like he's a SmackDown champ and porn superstar.
Yeah.
President Camacho. He comes out in his fucking like American flag like wrestling outfit with the belt. He's like shooting the like machine guns in the like office.
Yeah, in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Or not in the cabinet. Wherever that Senate is. I'm sick, guys. Forgive me. So Terry Crews plays President El Chapo, and he talked about how, like, he was so excited for this role. He really, really liked this role, and he, like, put so much into that character, and he loved that character. And then, and the movie flopped, you know? Like, it had no release, it flopped, and so all of his friends were like, oh, what was that movie you were in? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. And then the movie ended up doing really well in the long run. It ended up doing really well. He's like, people started coming up to me and talking to me about it. And he had this like really cool quote where he's like, you never know what's going to come back. He's like, give every piece of art like 110%. Make sure like you're proud of every art that you put out there because you never know what is the thing that's going to blow up. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and this thing that I cared so much about 10 years ago came back, and now I'm able to be like, I am really proud of that performance because I put 110 in it.
Well, and you can tell he still really likes it because he got a fucking colonoscopy on camera, in character, to announce his fucking 2024 presidential run. And it's the John Mulaney bit where it's like, things are already so weird, this might as well fucking happen.
It's crazy. That whole video of him getting the colonoscopy in character. Because it hits a point where you're like, he's not gonna. Oh my god, he's going to. It's crazy.
It's wild. But yeah, no, just like having that crazy president, and then like all of the people on the board have like the giant medals that they wear, the giant medallions.
Oh my god, I loved that.
And it's one of those movies overall where like there's a lot that we're talking about that we really liked, and then I feel like we've been kind of talking about like the impact of it, and I feel like it didn't really have a huge impact, but it like stuck around in a way that it gets brought up a lot.
Well, so the thing that's interesting, and I didn't realize this was the first this movie coined the term idiocracy.
Oh.
So that word didn't exist before this movie. Which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, that is really...
It's one that you're like, oh, that would have to be... You would think it would already exist.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exist because those roots don't go together, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I tried to Wikipedia it. Now I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Smarty people who have high IQs would know.
Another reason why this movie kind of had like a bad reception is they did it with a test audience. They like showed the movie to one test audience. It didn't do very well. They reworked it. They showed it to a different test audience. It again didn't do very well. And so then after the second test audience, their effects budget got slashed.
Oof.
Like in half.
Yeah.
Or maybe even like more. Mike Judge called a friend, and he came and did the special effects for free.
Oh, I love that.
Which is like kind of fun.
That's so nice.
Isn't it? It's good to have friends.
Because the effects are pretty decent.
They're pretty good, especially for 2005 and for fucking free. Like,
oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Well, and the like monster thing where like there's no way you could really do all of that practically. Especially there's the giant truck that like it's so big that it can't get into the stadium.
That I thought was really funny, was the inability to get it in the stadium.
And like they all have dicks on them, even the like shitty little four-door like sedan or whatever that they put Joe in. It's got the giant like floppy dildo that just killed me because it's so big, and the way it just like moved made me laugh so hard. I don't know why.
Because it's funny, man.
Dicks are funny, farts are funny. The thing where like the highest grossing movie is just ass.
Okay, so I don't know
just a butt.
I don't know how true this is, but I guess when they were shooting that scene, they just like got a bunch of people into a theater and actually showed them a butt farting for like 20 minutes to get that shot. And people were laughing. People were like straight up laughing. And apparently Judge was saying, he's like, we're already living in it. And part of me's like, that shit's funny.
Yeah,
You told me I need to be an extra in a movie. You walk me into a movie theater and then just show me a picture of a farting ass. And you're paying me to be here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna laugh at that.
This is one, it's shock value. Two, it's honestly kind of funny. Some people like Mike Judge just like didn't sit right with me, and it could be that I don't love Beavis and Butthead. I don't know, but he feels like he feels a lot like the guys who created South Park. Mm-hmm. And they openly have like a creative relationship where they kind of feed off of each other.
Yeah.
But it's that very much like libertarian vibe of like men who feel like they created something so they deserve everything kind of vibe.
I can see that.
Where it's like, man, you still gotta pay taxes. I don't care if you created Beavis and Butthead, you still gotta pay your fucking taxes. And they'll be like, but I created a massive empire. And you're like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Just be normal. Be normal about this.
Just be normal.
Like, that's how I don't know, that's how, like, that kind of feels to me.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the guys who made, like I said, South Park. Like, something about them just, like, doesn't sit right.
Yeah,
in my world. But I know other people fucking love them.
I think South Park is really funny. I think it's hard with that kind of, like, animated show, because, like, Beavis and Butthead and South Park, I feel like, are... I don't know how to explain it, but it's that thing where it's, like, lowbrow humor, but it's not, like... the fan base is still kind of tolerable. and it's not trying to be smart, as opposed to like Rick and Morty, where it's like trying to be smart and the fan base is fucking god awful.
Yeah. Well, like, even with Rick and Morty, they're not actually trying to be smart.
Yeah.
Rick and Morty is just about nihilism.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, for me, Rick and Morty never, again, didn't feel great, because people are like, oh, it's so deep, it's so whatever, and I'm like, it's a show about a nihilist doing nihilism. What's deep about it?
Yeah.
What am I missing? They're like, oh, but they, like, introduce philosophies. You're like, yeah, and then at the end of it, it means nothing, because it's nihilism. And I feel like I know that that's, like, comes off as snooty as well, but it is that thing of, like, it feels like pseudo-intellectualism.
Yeah.
That's what like, the Rick and Morty fandom feels like to me, is, like, this pseudo-intellectualism of, like, if you like philosophy, go take a philosophy class or learn about any other philosophy other than fucking nihilism. Like, there's so much else out there, man, and you would appreciate it so much more. Like, nihilism is really fucking hopeless, in my opinion, and as bad. It's just sad. Like, why live like that?
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me that they've made a really successful show off of it.
Yeah. Like, I had never really thought about the idea of, like, pseudo-intellectualism. Being able to measure how smart you are.
It's very Western.
Yeah. It's very I mean, my dad didn't finish college. I think he did, like, a semester of college. But he is so smart. Because he reads all the time. And he knows how to work with his hands. Like, but he, like, doesn't have a college degree. So whatever. He has to work blue-collar jobs. Dude. Even though he does really enjoy, like, working with his hands and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that thing where it's like, if you don't have this piece of paper that you paid a bunch of money for, if you haven't passed this one fucking test that's worded stupid,
yeah,
you don't get to, like, be seen as a valuable member of society.
You don't even gotta tell me about that.
I know, this is our rant about it.
Well, wait till we get to Legally Blonde. Because damn.
Bro,
but I do think that's, like, I think that's part of the thing about the reception of this movie that makes it so interesting, is that the people who try to be like, oh my god, this movie's so deep, it has so much, look at it being so, like, prophetic or whatever, and you're like, it feels like pseudo-intellectualism, where you're like, it's not that deep, man.
Yeah.
It's just satire.
Yeah.
And so when people are saying,
and it's like it's
lazy. such a deep movie, I feel like you're misunderstanding it.
Well, and it's almost lazy satire. It's really easy. It's really easy for satire to be like, well, people are dumb, and it's gonna ruin our country. It's like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, I don't know. Overall, it was a funny movie. I don't think it really, at this point in our history, I don't know, it doesn't really deserve the big fanfare it gets, in my opinion. It's funny. Watch it because it's funny. Don't watch it because you think you're going to walk away with some profound whatever, which is, like, what I thought was going to happen.
It's a like, a decent watch, and it's a okay movie, but I think it does say a lot that our entire conversation around this movie has been, like, society stuff, and not, like, and then there was this scene where they did this, and it was so impactful, and there was, like, this symbolism in this, like, it's just
there's not really even any symbolism in this.
Yeah.
It just is, like, guys being dumb.
Yeah. Just guys being dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to do, like, final quotes?
Oh, man, did I even write down any quotes? I did watch this while I was sick. Oh, I did like when the monster truck tried to go through the thing, and then the wall falls down, and then it says experimenting technical differences.
Experimenting technical.
And I was like, that's funny.
Very good. One of the things I liked is at one point Joe is wearing a shirt. Joe or Frito is wearing a shirt for, like, a drink that's Nasty brand.
Oh,
and so it's like NAS-TEA, but it's nasty. And then the, like, tagline is, it's good, with quotations around good.
I did love the electrolyte scene.
It's got the electrolytes that you crave.
But it's got I love how she says it, how she moves her hands. She's like, electrolytes. It's so fun.
Or every time they're, like, water, like, out of the toilet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much all my notes about it were just quotes. I think my final one is just when they're talking about, like, Joe becoming the VP and then becoming the president and trying to create a future. He's like, creating a future where reading wasn't just for fags. So, my final quote is, like, I think the epitome of the, like, punchline, and just it's the quote that's in the trailers and stuff, but it's they're sitting in the time machine car going through, and Frito is like, for the smartest guy in the world, you're pretty dumb sometimes. I just think that's such a good, like, final thing to end on.
It's a good final line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's Idiocracy.
What's your rating?
I wrote it down somewhere. I think I would give it like a 2.5.
Yeah, I was gonna give it like, I was gonna say 3 because I did think it was funny.
Yeah.
2.5 seems kind of harsh. Like, it's still pretty okay made.
Yeah. I think I would just say 2.5 just because, like, I feel like there was no, like, lasting, like, again, a lot of it just kind of fell out of my head except for, like, the standout dumb jokes.
Good point. Maybe I'll drop down with you.
Well, you don't have to join me in the dirt. You can stay up at 3 stars.
It could also be that, like, it helped me understand. There's some things where you're like, oh, that's where that came from.
Yeah.
And this movie had a lot of those things where you're like, oh, that's where that came from.
So I will say to that, love and light, but you haven't seen anything. So a lot of these movies you're going to experience, oh, that's where that's from.
Yeah.
It's like at the end of Hamlet too. Like, no matter where you go, it's always going to be better than Tucson. And for you, no matter what movie you watch, you're always going to remember, you're always going to figure out where the cultural touchstones are.
Yeah. Because this did feel like a cultural touchstone movie for at least a moment in time.
Yeah.
But if not, it's like kind of coming back now with some of the pieces.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I will give it 2.5. Let me think on it.
Okay. We'll noodle on it. We can always come back and do a greatest hits, too.
This would not make that for me. So yeah, maybe it will drop down. What else have I given 3 stars to?
I don't know. I don't keep a tab.
I guess this is 2.5. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll land there with you.
That's it for Idiocracy. And now we're going to go from one kind of mid movie about an average Joe to a very good movie about an average Joe. Our next episode is going to be about Joe versus the volcano.
Oh my goodness. You're already buttering people up. You're like, it's a great movie.
It's a fantastic film. And Film.
It's not a movie, it's a film.
It is. It's a film. But yeah, so that's Idiocracy. Come back next episode for Joe versus the volcano. Mm-hmm. Follow us on Instagram.
Yup.
OK_but listen. The usual. Rate and review. Tell your friends.
All that jazz.
Yeah.
Don't get sick.
Don't get sick. Stay healthy out there,
Stay
kids.
healthy. Wear your masks and stuff. And if you are sick, stay home and rest.
So, yeah. In the meantime, go watch Joe versus the volcano. Or don't. I'm not your dad. But go watch it. It's really good.
It's really good. It's actually really good.
See you next week. Bye. So anyway, see you next Tuesday.
Hey.
Bye.